This is one of the last old-style institutions left in Romania. Officials call it a placement centre for children with deficiencies. These kids call it home. Their so-called deficiencies are unclear, even to the officials who keep them here. And most of them aren't orphans at all. They've been abandoned. Today, there are still 220 large children's homes in Romania and thousands of kids living in the care of the state.
Every day counts. Every day they are in an institution counts. So it is a matter of life and death.
This place in the country's north is slated to shut down, possibly later this year. Romania wants to close the door on its dark past and its grim institutions. Now the thinking is that children should be reunited with their natural family, put into foster care or into smaller centres. It's a massive cultural shift for children, their parents and the entire society.
This place was an institution for children with severe special needs.
Aid worker Ștefan Derebuș returns to a place that haunts him to this day.
If you came to the building through the bars of the windows, you'd hear the shouts, you'd hear the screams, you'd see the hands being tied to the bars.
This home in the northern village of Sighet was known as the Institution for the Incurable. 270 children with mental and physical disabilities were kept here.
The kids who were self-aggressive were simply being tied and they were left in their cot like that for days on end.
4 years ago, Ștefan Derebuș shut it down. Closing these institutions has become his life's passion.
What's so wrong with institutionalisation?
Nobody pays attention to them individually because they're always a mass. Nobody cares if they're alone. Nobody will try to find out why they're sad. There will hardly be anybody asking them why they are ill and what happens and why they suffer.
And this is what's become of the children. Ștefan Derebuș has moved them to a smaller home, just a few kids and their carers. It's a model for what the Romanian government wants across the country.
Everything was a new experience to them. Getting them out, seeing the grass, touching the leaves. It was unbelievable to see how every single sensation was extraordinary, it was something fascinating to them.
Monica is 22 years old. She cannot see and doesn't talk. Her disabilities were almost certainly made worse by her time in the old home.
Because before, she was packed like a sandwich. Her position actually was more or less this one. And that's how she was tied. She was basically tied like a sandwich. And whenever she was let loose, she would hit her head with her feet very, very strongly.
After 2 years in these more humane surroundings, Monica has finally stopped hitting herself. But she, like Dani here, has never had the chance to develop properly. Dani is 19 years old but looks much younger. He can't walk because he too was tied to his bed in the old institution.
And they both were simply stuck in their cots or stuck on the chairs. They were sat without doing activities, without having any sort of interrelationship with people. They couldn't eat solid food. They were basically being fed from the bucket. And all they did was suck food. That was all they did. That was the way in which they were eating, drinking, basically, drinking their food.
For all of Romania's good intentions, 27,000 children are still living in state-run homes. Some centres have merely changed their names and functions to survive under the new system. At the Codlia home, north of Bucharest, the social workers asked us not to show the girls' faces. Conditions have improved. Once 8 girls lived to a room, now only 2 share. It's called the Centre for Girls with Psychological Disabilities, but officials had trouble telling me exactly what was wrong with the girls.
I'm not a specialist, but a kind of retard, kind of other mental disease. So, but this is not. I don't know all the diagnostics, but mainly mental disease.
Staff here say the girls have extremely low IQs.
How old are you? 17. 17? Yeah, 17.
But some of them were clearly bilingual, hardly a sign of a lack of intelligence. The girls at Codlia are not so much mentally disabled as socially impaired by their time at the centre. At least that's the belief of human rights lawyer Georgiana Pascu.
And they were placed there, and in that moment I assumed that the door was closed, you know. You are here, you have a mental disabilities, and we saw many children in that situation, especially teenagers.
The girls at Codlia are, it seems, smart enough to sew. The garments they make bring in money, not for them, but for the centre. It's a likely breach of Romania's own laws. This country was only admitted to the European Union on the condition that it lifted its game on child welfare. Now it's getting millions of dollars from abroad to support children, foster parents and single mothers. But there are fears that joining the EU will cause more pain for the country's young. 2 million Romanians have already left to find better paid jobs abroad. Many of them have left their children behind. In the village of Negrești-Oaș in the country's northwest, at least one member of every household has gone. The Poptil family is missing a generation. The parents of young Alina and Razvan have left to work abroad, leaving them with their grandparents. Grandfather Ion Poptil maintains the children don't miss out on anything.
Au telefon, dă telefon. Tati trimite masa, mami trimite ce. Așa că nu dus lipsă de nimic.
His 13-year-old granddaughter, Alina Poptil, hasn't lived with her parents since she was a toddler, and she misses them.
I can't tell my grandmother everything because she's old and she doesn't understand what's happening in this world right now, of teenagers and all this stuff.
What's it like when Razvan misses your parents? What happens?
He comes and tells me, and then I hug him and I tell him that my mother is going to come home soon.
Do you feel like you're a bit of a mother to him as well?
Of course, yes. Because my mother told me when she left that I should take care of him.
De fapt, la masă nu se vorbește, se mănâncă.
Alina Poptil and her brother are lucky in one sense. They have a home and people who care about them. Other children have been left to fend for themselves. Aid worker Marian Zaharia is guide to Romania's hidden world in the capital city of Bucharest. This is a service shaft for the city's heating system. Child welfare in this country is supposed to have improved, but some kids are still ending up on the streets. This concrete bunker is home for about 20 children. The youngest is just 12. Some of them have run away from abusive families or children's homes. The new system has failed them. Ricardo is high from sniffing glue, as are most of the teenagers down here. The 15-year-old ran away from home after his family sent him out to beg. His friend George was left homeless when his mother went to work in Germany.
So, who takes care of you?
Me, eu, el, toți prieteni, friends.
It's warm down here, but this is no place for children.
We received a lot of money from everywhere in the world, and obviously people expect now to see some changes. And the fact that these kids, these people are still here, it is sad.
There's no question that overall Romania's children are better off now than before. But as we discovered, some are still falling through the cracks. A new law says that children under the age of 2 can no longer live in institutions. And yet, here they are. This is a pediatric unit complete with a doctor and nurses. But there's nothing wrong with these babies except for the misfortune of being abandoned. In modern Romania, maternity wards have become the new orphanages. Dr Monica Nicoara is in charge.
I present you Emmanuel, Buzgan Emmanuel.
This little boy was given up by his family when he was 10 days old. He had no name then, and he still has no identity papers. That means, officially, he hasn't even been born.
Because with no ID, he doesn't exist. He has no rights. You don't exist, you have no rights. And now we're working on his ID papers.
There are 23 abandoned babies in this hospital ward. Many of them are strangely quiet. They've learned that crying doesn't get them anywhere, so they don't bother. They are babies who have never known a mother's love.
They have no affiliation, no stability. That's my mommy. I go to my mommy. I'm safe with my mommy. I have many mommies. Anyone, it's okay, but which is mine? It's not their place in the hospital, no matter the condition they are. It's simple.
They shouldn't be in a cot with another 10 babies around them just waiting to be fed. There isn't staff to work with them. The medical staff is not specialized in working with children. They are medical staff, they are nurses, and a baby's place is not in a hospital.
But for now, these babies have nowhere else to go. Many Romanians are just too poor to take them in, and foreigners are no longer allowed to adopt them.
I think that the issue of international adoptions was at the core of not doing reform in Romania until 2001-2002, because people thought generally that by sending kids abroad, you would sort out the issue of childcare in Romania. It was totally wrong.
The adoption system had become a corrupt business. Babies were changing hands for tens of thousands of dollars.
I think that money was being made by a whole network formed of lawyers, people involved in social services, politicians, doctors. You'd have, I think that nearly everybody who was involved in this kind of scheme had his or her own cut.
Now the baby trade has been stopped, but it hasn't changed a culture that for half a century encouraged parents to hand over their unwanted babies to the state.
Has it made your job harder?
My job is the same, but my soul is crying.
Romania genuinely wants to improve the lives of its children and repair its image. But some aid agencies suggest that children are still being abandoned at the same rate as in the communist years. The legacy of that era lives on in the neglect of children. It's a cycle that could take decades to break.